I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you're going to love that title story too. Here's our first one. Accidentally burned down my neighbor's fence, and she tries to milk me for $10,000. Judge humbles that butt up real quick. Posted by T-Bird Kamikaze. So it's been about 4 years since this happened. I was about 18 at the time, working for a security company. There were constant call-offs and no-shows. I have no idea why. But being so young and naive, I was constantly working 16-hour shifts and not coming home until 8 a.m. Also, I lived with my father at the time. The time frame of this was around the 4th of July. I finally had a day off and my best friend was back in town for vacation. We decided to get together and chip in on some good old American fireworks. To be fair, I have had nothing but bad experiences with fireworks, so I had no idea how this would be any different. We got home with the fireworks and we laid them all out on the floor. Sparklers, bottle rockets, cakes, and Roman candles. I say, why don't we mess around with some sparklers since it's still not dark yet? Great idea. We go into my backyard where it hasn't rained in well over 2 months and is extremely dry. You see the problem here? One of the little sparkies from mine and my friend's sparkler made contact with the ground and it made 2 small fires that quickly spread to a large area. I ran as fast as I could to grab the garden hose and quickly started spraying down the fire. It was of no use. It was spreading faster than I could spray it. I handed my friend the hose and called 911. What felt like hours was only 4 minutes and the fire was spreading to the neighbor's fence. The neighbor came outside and they were fairly calm to grab their hose and spray down the fence along with the dead grass in her yard. The fire department shows up finally and I tell my friend, only one of us needs to get in trouble, you should leave. He was reluctant to leave because he felt equally responsible, but I convinced him that I didn't want him to get in trouble and have to drop out of college. My neighbor was super chill about the entire situation at first. I told her that we could talk about replacing the fence and get some quotes to repair it. She was just super grateful that everyone was okay. About 2 hours after the fire, the arson and fire investigator came to question me about the fire. I told him the truth. I said I was in the backyard by myself playing with fireworks and accidentally lit the ground on fire. I had gotten off that day without being hit by any charges and was commended for being honest. Here is where it goes downhill very fast. About a week later, I get a knock on the door from the neighbor. I opened the door and she handed me 2 pieces of paper for me to look at. There was a quote for the fence valued at around $4,000 and an estimate for lawn care valued around $6,000. These were really shady and just typed out on a Microsoft Word document with no logo or company name. She then adds, I will also be having you pay my water bill for 3 months because the new yard will need lots of water. Now, the fence that this woman had before was raggedy and fallen apart. Her yard? Dead grass, weeds everywhere, never even mowed it. Now, looking at this paper, she wants a mahogany fence, a brand new backyard with flowers and trimmed hedges. I said, I need to get an estimate myself. This just doesn't feel right. She says, remember you agreed to replace my fence, and a real man keeps promises. I shut the door and called my dad to tell him about what just happened, and he flipped the heck out and told me, son, don't you give that jerk a single dime. He gives me the number to his handyman and tells me to take care of it. The next day, I had the guy come out for an estimate, and the neighbor ran outside flailing her arms. I did not give you permission to get an estimate on my fence. Technically, it separates the property line, so it's both of our fences. She calls the cops on me for having a contractor, and they ultimately can't do a single thing because I'm on my property. He quickly finishes an estimate off at about $1,200. I also knew a guy who did lawn care from my time working at the grocery store. He estimated the lawn reseeding while she was away from the house to be about $800. After I get these estimates, I give copies to the woman, and she's having none of it. I don't know these people, I don't want them near my house, and they're probably some really crappy contractors. I said, no, I know them personally, and they're really nice people, and they do great work. She shut the door in my face, and I went on my way. I ended up working a 16-hour shift that night, and I got home at 8 a.m., and this woman comes knocking on my door at 9 a.m. and demanded I speak to her. I explained, hey look, I would really love to do this, but I just got home and I have to be back at work in less than 5 hours. I need to sleep. She goes, what kind of crazy lazy butt sleeps in until 2 p.m.? At this point, I had about lost it and told her, you can either accept my $2,000 for my quotes or kiss my butt and get nothing. She stood there for a while with her mouth gaped open, but she accepted my offer and planned to meet down at the notary the next morning. I spent that night after I got off work writing a contract and gathering the $2,000 in cash. The next morning, I wake up and grab this contract to meet down at the notary. I was thrilled to finally be done with this broad and never speak to her again. I waited for her for over 3 hours and she didn't show up. I get a call from her saying, I'm sorry, the $2,000 isn't enough. I'm having my guys start work on this project and you will be paying me full price. Oh, really? After that, I did not say a single word to her and I watched for a few months as these guys turned her backyard into an oasis, complete with a small pond, brand new sod and flowers, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out, she had plans to remodel these things for a long time and was just waiting for the opportunity to go through with it. Also in this time, she used her remodel funds to go on a trip to Hawaii. You know how I found out about this? She was bragging about it on the neighborhood Facebook group and didn't know I was in it. I have a different Facebook name than my real name. Are you ready for the revenge? Now, 4 months after the fire and all of the remodels, I get served papers to go to court for $10,300. At 18 years old, I'm having to hire a lawyer to work my case. When we finally do get into court, I lay everything out. The quotes, being harassed multiple times, not showing up after agreeing to a deal, not wanting me to get my own quotes, required by law by the way, and her bragging about screwing me out of money, and I have proof of all of this. The judge looked at her and said, ma'am, with all due respect, you're out of your daggone mind. Not only did this young man tell you the truth of what happened, he offered to pay you more than what he was supposed to. Your lawn was already dead before the fire occurred, therefore he is only responsible for the fence of $1,200. I will also deduct from this his lawyer fees of $800. So I'm thinking, so I burned this woman's fence down and all I'm having to give her is $400? Cool. She took a huge financial loss from this. Not sure how much the Hawaii trip cost her, but she was in serious debt. She ended up having to sell the house because of it and moved into a smaller house. Haven't heard anything from her since. Now I do need to clear a few things up. I am not saying that I don't feel bad for burning down my neighbor's fence. I felt really bad about it and wish we could have handled it more civilly. I would have been happy to meet in the middle or get multiple quotes. To this day, I still do not use fireworks because we could have really hurt someone. What I have learned through this though is that it's best to take responsibility from your actions from the gate. The fire investigator had seen the leftover fireworks near the area of the fire and said he would have slapped cuffs on me and I would be in jail for arson if I would have given him any other answer. I was not criminally charged and the incident was deemed an accidental fire. Thank you for the people in the comments for giving me information about how much a fence actually cost. I've never had to purchase a fence before, so I just believed what the contractor had told me without second thought. Terrible neighbors today, and one's from the HOA. Neighbors that will never be satisfied. Posted by Maggie 102899. So our neighbors of a few years have increasingly caused issues with us over how we do things in our yard. When my mom tried to build a fence to separate us, they protested and got our other neighbors' support. Their current issue with us is that our sprinklers have been staining their driveway. My mom has gotten our landscaper to adjust the sprinklers at least 3 times already, but the husband keeps complaining even though the water barely gets on their driveway. I wonder how he feels when it rains, jeez. My sister saw him in our yard messing with our sprinklers the other day. We don't know what to do. Just now, my mom was watering our plants and both the wife and husband came outside to berate her. The husband started yelling at her and the wife ordered his little witch self inside, but then she continued to yell at my mom. They're always watching us. I don't feel comfortable swimming in our pool, which is such a shame and waste. We just got it remodeled. We are getting the landscaper to come out this week to fix the sprinklers again, but we know they'll just complain again. Any ideas? This causes my mom so much stress, and the wife is always acting innocent and confused as to why my mom gets upset with her. It causes stress throughout our whole family. My little sister is breaking down in tears right now. There's a lot more information that I can share to clear things up, but I just wanted to share what their current complaint was to us. They will never leave us alone. Once we fix one thing for them, they find another. And no, we're not going to move. We've lived in this house for over 20 years. This commenter gives OP a suggestion and we get an HOA answer back. Put up a fence, tell the jerks to stay off your property and call the police if they harass you. And OP says, initially we had HOA rules saying that we couldn't put up a wooden fence, and thanks to these neighbors and them trying to get more rules enacted, the HOA for our neighborhood eventually disbanded. While all of this was happening and my mom was believing she couldn't build a fence, she instead got bushes planted that are meant to grow and give us privacy, spending a lot of money instead of spending it on a fence. These bushes are still knee level even after 2 years, so it's going to take a while. We've even had to deplant a few bushes because of these neighbors. We have a creek running behind both our backyards, and sometimes the city needs to come and check the pipeline that runs through it, and our neighbors wouldn't allow the city to drive on their driveway, so we had to move 4 of those bushes so they could get access and drive through our yard on the grass. Now those bushes are sitting in 4 pots awaiting to be moved if needed. When we first got the bushes, a lot of them had been dying for no reason, and we had to get them replaced. We have a suspicion that our neighbors tampered with them because our landscaper said it looks like someone put something on the bushes to kill it, and we would never do this. These bushes are right next to their driveway, by the way. We also had individual sprinklers placed to water each bush, but they kept malfunctioning or getting cut. Like, come on, that has to be them. So, this definitely hasn't helped in their growth and is another reason we have our regular sprinklers on. Now my mom has to walk out and manually water each bush. My mom spent all this money for an alternative for a fence and is very hesitant about building an actual one. Also, if we did build one, our neighbors would give us absolute heck and the city wouldn't be able to access the pipeline in our creek. We'd have to dig up all of the bushes and move the fence over to give them enough clearance. My mom now regrets this decision. Also, the wife is always texting my mom complaining about things, and I've told my mom to block her number, but she can still come out and yell at us in person. Any more ideas or thoughts? Another update. Whenever I do go outside, whether in my backyard or pool, which unfortunately faces their house, the dad always seems to come outside to do something like wash his car or mow. Also, he mows at least 10 times a week or does the leaf blower early in the morning and during the day multiple times and awakes me from sleeping and naps. My family thinks it's his way of getting away from his wife, so he keeps everything pristine outside so he doesn't have to deal with her inside. I've also seen them looking out their kitchen window into our yard on several occasions. I will mention, we never had any problems with them until my dad died a few years ago, and the wife even mentioned the first time they complained about something that my dad would have been more compliant, that they never had any issues with him, but that was before they started complaining. My dad never did anything to help around in the backyard, so it's not like anything has changed. It actually looks a little nicer now. We've added a stone pathway and an arch with flowers around it and so on. Super good comment says, ignore, wear headphones, do not react. Seriously, no reaction will kill her. If she escalates into violence, throwing things and so on, call the cops and always record her. No reaction. Seriously. And OP unfortunately says, I'll get my mom to try this, but the wife literally gaslights my mom by saying, I don't know why you're mad, we've always been nice to you. She acts innocent and confused as to why my mom is angry. It's infuriating. And we have an answer. I'm putting up these privacy fence screens around the metal fence that surrounds our pool for a little more privacy. I'm doubling them for even more privacy. My mom doesn't love the look of them though, but this is a temporary fix for a little more privacy. Neighbors trespassing because they don't like my yard, posted by Lizarding Loudly. Hi there, I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood in a small town. I've never been one for lawn maintenance, I actually hate lawns and view them as a frickin' scam, and my next door neighbor to the east is obsessed with her lawn, watering it every day, even in 100-degree weather, mowing it once a week, having her grandson mow, I should say. It's always dark green with no weeds. That's fine with me, it's her yard. However, I don't believe in wasting water for vanity, nor do I like emissions from lawnmowers. I have an electric one. Have I ever, or would I ever, say anything about this to her? Nope, because again, it's her lawn. I'm sure you can see where this is going. I let my lawn get pretty long, mostly from how busy I am. On top of a full-time job, half an hour away, I'm a gigging musician and spend several weeknights and weekends out of town. I also just don't really believe in lawns. I'm hoping to plant a clover one this fall after I check city ordinances. It doesn't help either that it took a while to get my hands on a string trimmer, and I was only very recently able to afford the yard cart to have the city take yard waste to the compost pile. I refuse to just throw it away. Organic matter does not need to go into the regular trash. Anyways, I guess between her, the house directly across the street, and my neighbors on the other side, this has become a hot topic and one they discuss between themselves. Recently, someone called the city on me over the backyard, which no one can see except for a glimpse from each direct neighbor's driveway. Also, the daughter-in-law of the neighbor to the east has messaged me asking if I would please let her son mow because my yard is affecting her mother-in-law's sanity, and has also offered to come help because my neighbors are really upset about it. Multiple times this week, someone had come onto my property to mow or weed whack or move stuff around while I'm at work. They don't talk to me about it first, they don't leave a note, they just do it. Someone also broke some of the pots on my side porch, which I realized may have been an accident, but it's still annoying. I got home from work last night intending to mow the front because it is a little long even for me. I spent time a few days ago pulling weeds in preparation to mow, even making sure to cut off the blown dandelion heads and then throw them in the waste bin separately so it wouldn't spread seeds. I have to mow the lawn in segments so my mower can charge, but when I got home yesterday, someone had already mowed. I have been making progress in other areas, cleaning up leaves, putting more stuff in the garage so it's not visible, and so on. I'd like to think they're being helpful, but I'm almost positive they're doing it for them, not me. I don't like that they're coming onto my property without asking. I don't want to create a huge rift in the neighborhood, but it's so annoying. In my opinion, if your neighbor's yard bothers you so much, talk to them directly or go to therapy or both. Should I leave everyone a note asking them to please stay off my property? Visit houses individually? Like I said, I'm not wanting to get antagonistic about it, but I seriously want everyone to stop getting in my stuff. I'm sure to some people I am the neighbor from heck, and that's fine if that's how you feel. I understand that everyone values different things. Update from OP. A commenter says, I wish my neighbors would mow my lawn. I have to pay somebody to mow it. And OP says, I've gone that route in the past. Jerk just ran over some of my flowers with his mower, obviously pretty ones that were under the mailbox and had every right to be there. And he said he wouldn't mow unless I paid him to come every week, which I understand from a business model point of view, but I don't make that kind of money for that kind of expense. One commenter jumps on OP and says, not believing in lawn care does not mean you don't have to maintain it. Either put the clover lawn in ASAP or cut your grass before it becomes a jungle. And OP replies, it's maintained, just not up to their standards, I guess. I'm hoping to work in the clover lawn in this fall. It can't be planted when it's too awful hot, and it's in the hundreds every day around here for a while. Great comment here. An overgrown yard isn't just an eyesore, it's a breeding ground for snakes and rodents. That does affect your neighbors. Watching my neighbors enjoy their backyard when they won't allow us to enjoy ours. Posted by Luna Sosike. With an update. We have retired neighbors who were friendly when we moved in. It started with a quick wave over the fence. It has now escalated to every time they hear any of us in the backyard, they rush out and stand at their fence until we have to pass them again. Now there's only one way in and out of our yard, to listen to them talk. We'll often say bye and walk away and they're still talking. They'll often say, oh, all right, bye, as we close the door behind us to return inside. I always dreamed of having a big backyard, and I'm so frustrated that now we don't use it. At one point, one of the neighbors broke their leg. This isn't stopping her. Her husband came over, engaged us in conversation to stall us so his wife could come over too. She was hobbling along and complaining that she was in such pain as she leaned on the fence. Now, before you think they're lonely, they're not. I see their children and grandchildren over often. The breaking point was we bought a new pressure washer and wanted to test it out in the backyard. We were out there with our daughter and she was oohing and eyeing. It was a cute family moment. Of course, the neighbors took their spot on the fence and started just yelling to speak over the pressure washer. It was crazy to watch. The only person that goes into our yard now is the lawn care guy. I go out occasionally to pick fruit, but we haven't used our yard in months. My daughter and I play out in the front as we get more privacy facing a main street than we do in the backyard. Yesterday, a friend came over and wanted to see the orange trees that we have. We were on the other side of the yard when the neighbor came out and stood on the fence as usual. Even having a guest didn't deter her. I hurried my friend back inside as the neighbors essentially talked to herself. The update. A few months ago, I made a post about my neighbors that would not let us spend time in our backyard without sucking up all of our spare time with their chatter. I know it seems excessive, but we are a time-poor family. I work 4 days a week, my husband works full-time, I study full-time, and we have a toddler. In order to make it all work, my husband and I work alternating days, so we get only a few days off altogether a month. So you can imagine how angry I was that each time we wanted to spend family time outside, my neighbor would be there, telling me about the time her baby died, how sick her sister is, how sick they have been, or some other tragedy. Anyway, I read through everyone's comments, cheers by the way, and while I can't construct a way to block their view of us, I took the rest of your advice. I starved them of attention until we weren't a viable source anymore. Each time that I went out, I would smile, nod, and then put all my headphones in and carry on with what I needed to do. Mowed the lawn, picked up dog junk, cleaned out the garden beds, played with the dog. It took about 3 months, but they got the message. I was annoyed each time that I had to go out because it felt like a chore stacked onto another chore. Now I had to go mow my lawn, but also ensure that I didn't make eye contact with the fence that I knew my neighbors were standing at, desperately trying to get my attention so they could tell me about their latest bout of gastro. I'm still not comfortable trying to go out into the backyard to spend time as a family because I'm anxious they'll harass us again. It's slow progress, but hopefully once the weather warms up, we'll be back to having backyard picnics. Please help. What rights do I have as a renter being targeted by the HOA? Posted by Do Association 5112. I moved into my apartment about 2 months ago. Each 3-bedroom apartment unit only gets 2 parking spaces, leaving the third person with no spot. I was worried about this issue and voiced the concern to my roommates, but they assured me that there's parking spots about 2 blocks away from a nearby townhome community that I can park in. In worst case, I can use the guest spots on the property. They've done it for years. The security guard also told me that I could get a guest pass from him to park there if I didn't see any. Long story short, I got home at 3 a.m. one night and there were no parking spots and I was forced to leave my car in a guest spot. I didn't find security for a guest pass. For 4 hours, and when I checked in my car at 7 a.m., it had a parking violation that read, "Car does not come back to any resident." I didn't think anything of it. 2 days later, we are told by our property manager that the HOA wants us out immediately. Our property manager fought for us to at least get 60 days, and for legal reasons, they were forced to grant us 60 days. We had already signed our intent to renew and had another girl moving in at the end of the month for our new lease, which we had to cancel due to us being possibly kicked out. I spoke to the property manager, and it turns out that I was the last straw because of the past roommate's parking violations and abuse of guest passes, which I can't blame her because we don't have a right to park on property. I see cars with parking violations all the time, and I can guarantee that they are not being threatened to be kicked out after a parking violation with no written warning or notice. No communication is ever given with these kind of violations. My roommates didn't even know about the past roommates' violations either. It doesn't seem fair that we can all be punished. It also states on the parking violation that towing is the consequence of parking there, not getting kicked out. Technically, they are only not letting us renew our lease, and that's how they get around it as a loophole. Now we are 1. Left to pay an empty room that we can't afford because no one's going to move in for just 1 or 2 months. And 2, I paid tons of HOA fees, application fees, moving costs to move in that I should not be forced to do again 2 months later. They are giving me and my roommate 60 days to figure out what to do, and we feel lost, targeted, and bullied with no voice. What kind of rights do I have as a renter? Are they allowed to do this? Please help. The HOA towed me, but I'm not even in the HOA. Should I press charges? Click the video on your screen so you don't miss this awesome story, and I'll see you there.